It was an early afternoon. Nora had left her home because she was quite bored, and since she couldn't figure out what to do at home, and just staying indoors would make her even more getting bored, so she had decided to take a walk in town just to enjoy the nice day. And as she was walking around, she suddenly heard this gunfire. She followed the sound and she came to a place and immediately saw it was a person that she recognized. And it was Lee Ren, or is simply known as Ren. He was to practice with his fully automatic pistol, Storm Flower. She was standing in a distance while watching him practice. After a while, he suddenly stopped and he apparently took a break. When he turned around and saw her, he smiled and waved to her and invited her to come over, and she walked up to him. They started talking, and she told him that she was impressed of his skills with those pistols. He smiled and thanked her and for the accomplishment, for the comment. But then he asked her if she wanted to do some practice with him, or at least a sparring match. But the thing is, she would have an advantage against him because she has a hammer that can be transformed into a grenade launcher. And since he has fully automatic pistols against a weapon that can be either a hammer or a grenade launcher, that will give her a bit advantage. She told him that, and he thought for a moment, and then he said, why not use wooden staff as weapons? Because they have been taught how to use different weapons just in case if their own weapons would either be destroyed or lost or unavailable at the time. And this is not the first time Nora had used wooden staff in practice with some of her friends back home or something like that. So they practiced for about 3 hours. And after 3 hours of practice against each other, both still felt a bit exhausted and even hungry. Ren suggested they would go somewhere to grab something to eat, and Nora was actually happy with the idea. So she went with them to a small place and made their order. While they were eating, Ren suddenly asked her if there was something that she wanted to talk about. She was like, what did he mean? What he didn't know that Nora actually had his strong feelings for him. But this was one thing that she hadn't told anyone, not even her own mother. And she said, not really. She didn't know what to say though. But then he asked if there was someone that she liked, or if this it is someone she would like. She was actually taken a little bit aback. She first believed maybe that he figured out she had a crush on him. But she said that there was someone she liked, and she asked him if he knew who. But he shook his head and said no, he didn't know, but he was glad that she liked someone. She asked him if there was someone that he liked. He said the same thing, but he didn't want to answer, at least. He didn't, but only said that he just hoped that this girl that he likes would eventually like him the same way back. After a while, they finished their food and Nora left and went home. As she was in her own room, she buried her own face in a pillow, screaming and crying. How could she never been able to confess her true feelings for Ren like that? She had given many opportunities to be telling to confess her true feelings for Ren, but each time she failed. Every time she tried, but she couldn't bring out the right words. But one day, when she was actually around the town, she saw him, and but unfortunately he didn't see her because she hid quickly. Because ever since that day, she couldn't stop thinking about him even more. And in fact, she tried to hide herself from him multiple times. For the next few days, in fact. She either ran to hide before he could see her, or she left the area before he can see her. But after a few days, he found her at the park and asked her if they could talk for a moment. There was something that he wanted to talk to her about. And even though that she wanted to come up with a good excuse so that she could leave. But unfortunately, she couldn't come up with any. And ever since then, she just wanted to listen. So they sat down and they start talking. He asked her if he could tell her something. She nodded, and she was curious what he wanted to tell her. Then he confessed of his true feelings for her. She was taken aback. She didn't even expect that Ren, of all the people that she know, would just simply just like that confess. But then she confessed back the same thing, that she liked him. But before he could say anything else, she just stood up and ran off. He was just sitting there stunned. She was at home quickly. She hid her face in a pillow once again, crying to mask her sound of crying. How could she be so stupid right now that just confessed like that? But in the next 2 days, she didn't even leave her own home. But those 2 next days, when she did encounter Ren, she did ask him about his supposed feelings for her was real or not. And he said that they were real. And he asked the same thing, and she said the same. They were real. She had been in love with him for a while, but just had never given an opportunity to tell him. He then suggested that they would go out on a date. She was actually not surprised. She was a bit surprised that when he asked that, but she agreed. They went to have a dinner together. Even though this was her very first date ever, but it was just really surprising how things would turn out for her. Because she loved him so much. But there was something about him that she couldn't stop thinking about. But they both made a deal. They wouldn't start dating officially right away, because even though they had supposed feelings for each other, they just wanted to wait and see after a few dates to really sure if they actually have any feelings for each other. So, after their sixth date, Ren asked her that evening after the date was over if her feelings for him were the same, or even more, or not. She said that her feelings for him was much stronger now. She was for sure that she loved him. She asked the same thing, and he said the same thing back. They decided to make it official. Even ever since then, their relationship between them remained very strong. Even though they didn't see each other for a few days because of other things that had become between. But when they did meet up, they end up having either picnics or even just go on for dinners, or just simply having a sparring match between each other. But it happened that Nora couldn't see Ren for a few days, or sometimes for a week. Sometimes he practiced either by himself, or he practiced with some other people, or that he had a lot of things to do. And since Ren lost his parents at one point, and since Nora lived with her own mother herself, so that is one thing that Nora couldn't not even imagine, to not having a family around anymore. She often thought to talk about it, but then she always not to, because she didn't want to bring up some bad memories of Ren's parents' loss. But eventually, one day that might happen, she thought herself. But after they had been dating for about a year, some of their friends had asked them how they were going between them. Both always answer kindly and with true answer, but the honest reply that it was going well between them. They hardly fight at all. They have no argues of anything like it, which was still a surprise for both of them actually. But it did happen they did have small argues or debate on what to do for a date, if they want to go have a picnic, dinner, or sparring match. But after they had been dating for about a year, it happened that Nora was curious. will they be together forever? Because she knows deep in her heart that Ren is her true soulmate. But she hadn't even told him that. Because she doesn't know if they will be in a long-term relationship or short-term. Because she deeply loved Ren so much. She just wants to be with him forever. Eventually one day she wants to settle down and start a family with him. But eventually, it might happen, she thought herself, or not. But after they had been dating for another 3 or 4 years, a total of 5, Ren and Nora was still happy to being together in such long-term relationship. For a total of 5 years, they could not even imagine it. And on their 5th anniversary, Ren took with Nora to the park where they first met at that day when he brought her when he was practice. He then proposed to Nora. She was really taken aback because she never even imagined that Ren would propose to her so soon. But then she realized they had been dating for 5 long years, and they were only getting stronger and stronger for each single day. So why wouldn't he propose to her like that? But she started crying and said yes immediately that she wanted to get married to him. They decided to have a small wedding. There were a small problem for that, because they couldn't invite Ren's family since his parents was long gone. And since Nora only had her mother, which wouldn't only be a small family gathering though, but Nora told Ren that now that everybody get married, he will be part of her family, no matter what happens. And that made him smile and cry a little, but he was happy to hear it. And when they made this announcement to Nora's mother, she was just happy to see her daughter finally to get married her own. And on the day of the wedding, Ren was a little bit nervous, but some of his friends told him to just be calm and take a deep breath, it will go well. And after that, Ren, when he saw Nora walking down in a dress like that, he couldn't believe it. He was finally going to get married with his true soulmate. Even that was one thing that he hadn't even told her yet, but he would eventually telling that sometimes after the wedding. And she did the same thing. Even afterwards, at the wedding reception, everyone could see how happy both Nora and Ren were together. Even when they were dancing the first time, and even when they interacted with other guests together or separately. They just felt happy for them. And Nora's mother welcomed Ren as part of the family, and he gave her a hug and said thanks. She even told Ren that she knows that his parents would have been proud of him and happy that he had finally found someone that he wanted to be with forever. And he smiled and nodded that he knows his parents are happy for both of them. Especially, he just wished that Nora could have met his parents one time. But Nora, when she heard this conversation and told him, even though that she may not have never going to meet that his parents were real, but knowing how much he loves his family despite being long gone, that love for his parents is a true how he really feels for him and for her and for themselves together. That made Ren smile more and said, "You know, you're right. My family would love you so much. You're a true angel, you know that?" And Nora smiled back to him for that. Afterwards, they went on his honeymoon on the coastline for about a week. There, they just enjoyed the sunset together, just having such great time They were just happy to be with the one they loved the most of all in this entire world, knowing how much danger there were in the world, but regardless of that, they were just happy to be with the one they loved the most. And after they had been married for about 3 years, both Ren and Nora, they wanted to start a family of their own. And eventually, they would have the announcement. When they were meeting up with Nora's mother at her house, they had an announcement to say, telling her that she will eventually have her own first grandchild soon, a granddaughter. She was excited because this was her first grandchild, and a granddaughter of all. When she asked them about the name they was going to name her, they said Celeste, they thought, as a good name. And rest of her entire pregnancy, Ren took care of her. And a few months later, they had their daughter Celeste. She was a beautiful baby daughter she had, which were the comments of Nora's mother said. When Celeste was only 3 years old, they had another child, a boy, which they named Zack. Zack, well, he was very like his father. And eventually, when Celeste was older, she wanted to be a huntress like her mother. And Nora trained her as much as she could before she was old enough to be sent off to Beacon Academy, where she once herself went to. Eventually, Celeste managed to do so, and she became a huntress. She and even at one point get even married with a young man, and they even had 2 daughters of their own. Zack, by the other way, he didn't want to be a hunter or anything like it. He had a different dream of his. He wanted to be a blacksmith. Turned out that he always had been this inspiration to be a blacksmith because he wanted to either make weapons or other tools that could be useful in society. When Zack was old enough, he went to a small blacksmith and he was given this apprenticeship to be a blacksmith. After many tense years of being practiced to be as a blacksmith himself, he eventually became as one. And he was just happy to have fulfilled the dream of become a blacksmith. Another big surprise, during this time, Zack actually had got close to the blacksmith's daughter, were on the same age, and after a while, the blacksmith actually given his approval for his daughter to marry Zack. After all, Zack was proving himself to be a very much skilled and excellent blacksmith. And one day when the blacksmith had retired, he even gave his own blacksmith or his forge over to Zack, which gradually opened it and took over the business. During this time, though, both Ren and Nora were just happy to have this beautiful family and even had a few grandchildren of their own, which always made them smile. But there was only one thing that Nora always thought of. What if she hadn't even confessed her feelings for Ren all those years ago? She may not even have been with him right now, and not even have Zack or Celeste with him. And with that, she is happy she listened to her heart and did admit her feelings. When she did mention that to Ren, he was happy that she did, because he has no idea if he would have been such happy with her otherwise. And this is how Ren and Nora, for the true love, got a family together. The end.